If you think of yarn as the physical embodiment of a hug, then reading these comments, it's like watching a teddy bear being set on fire. Although it seems like a total nonsense, we're actually looking at a perfect little terrarium of human sociology and hidden power plays. Today, diving into the psychology and history behind these interlocking loops, we're gonna see how this nonsense actually makes perfect sense. The Narcissism of small differences is a psychological concept coined by Sigmund Freud in 1917. This is where the more similar we are to someone else, the more aggressively we would feel like to manufacture a feud to keep our own tribal boundaries from dissolving. Think of this like the Bay Hive fighting the Swifties. They don't beef with metalheads because the gap is too wide, choosing instead to hyperfixate on the near-identical neighbors to assert the distinctiveness. We build our own identities by who we are not, transforming a simple hook and a pair of needles into a broader world that feels as thrilling and unresolvable as a multi-generational family feud. But beneath the petty comments and the TikTok roast about how unwearable and unflattering and zero-drape crochet is, there's a much older and rigged system at play. We actually parroting rules made by men 5 centuries ago. To see how this strap was set, we're gonna need to look past the yarn and into the antiquated mindset that turned creativity into a class struggle. Back in 15th century Europe, we would find painters and weavers sharing the same lunch table as manual laborers belonging to trade guilds. With the rise of wealthy patron, we start to see a shift toward the myth of the genius. It was decided that a painter channels divine philosophy through his mind, and a weaver merely performs mechanical motion through mindless repetition. So basically, society gave painters a massive PR rebrand. Now let me explain. I'm not trying to drag a Da Vinci masterpiece down to the same level as a floor carpet. What I'm saying is that Da Vinci happened to choose paint as his medium. If he had chosen to work with yarn, I don't think that would make him any less of a genius. So constructing these towels necessarily require locking doors, leading art academies to explicitly ban women from studying classical paintings and sculptures for centuries. Being legally squeezed out of the high-status world, women were channeled into the domestic sphere, and so their only creative outlets were textile arts like embroidery, sewing, or knitting. We're looking at a rigged hierarchy where some level of physical dexterity and mathematical precision is celebrated as divine on a man's canvas, but labeled quaint when performed by a woman. This division is a psychological penalty for objects. If we look at a marble statue of a human form, our minds immediately categorize it as art because its main purpose is to be contemplated. However, taking this same form, crafting it out of clay, and turning it into a teapot causes the hierarchy to demote it to craft the moment we can pour tea out of it. We've spent 5 centuries internalizing this bias that says utility is the enemy of intellectual art. The history of the crochet hook takes a dark turn into the long shadow of the 1840s, becoming an instrument of survival. Beneath the sanitized name of the Great Famine lies a catastrophic starvation that many describe as a genocide driven by colonial policies. Squeezed by this systemic cruelty, Irish women began mimicking the aristocratic needle lace, creating a technique so ingenious it allowed families to buy their way out of the grave one stitch at a time. Because this beautiful Irish crochet lace could be produced in a fraction of the time compared to the expensive Venetian style, the gatekeepers of London immediately branded it as the cubic zirconia of textiles, explicitly to keep the classes separated. Framing crochet the poor man's lace ensured that the stigma of poverty was woven directly into the fabric of the craft, leaving us with an Irish ghost that still haunts every modern crochet critique. It is a classist trap set 2 centuries ago, which continues to define what we consider cheap without ever realizing the original script. Historically, the luxury market tends to follow a pretty predictable 3-step cycle. If we look at crafts that originally got disrespected like scrap quilting or Japanese boro mending, they typically follow the same trajectory. Step number 1, stigmatization, where high society mocks the craft as tacky or cheap. Then comes the plot twist, appropriation, in which high fashion rediscovers the mastery, sends it down a runway, and charges $4,000 for the privilege. Finally, in gentrification, the craft gets rebranded as luxury heritage, which ironically prices out the descendant of the people who invented it. And this isn't just a craft thing, it's what happened to hip-hop in the 80s or even lobster in 19th century, which literally used to be considered sea bugs and were only fed to prisoners. So this inferior craft label is actually a 200-year-old scar, tracking us toward a modern era where machine worshipping turned homemade into a dirty word. At the altar of the Industrial Revolution, the flags of human skill underwent a radical and permanent transformation. Before those factory gears began to turn, handing a perfectly smooth sweater is the ultimate proof of human brilliance. But once the machine starts stamping out identical fibers for pennies, that aesthetic of perfection suddenly shifted to a sign of mass market capitalism. Subconsciously worshipping the machine, we have fallen for a linguistic scam that cages our creativity inside a hierarchy of economic privilege. It's a system where society takes the exact same labor and categorizes it as either homemade or handmade. Depends on the person behind the presentation. If you are wealthy enough to turn your back on the factory, you are rewarded with a title of handmade artistry. But if you rely on the same labor out of necessity, you get the homemade tag, signaling a pitiful lack of choice that feels more like a domestic chore than a creative breakthrough. We can see this hypocrisy in its most vibrant form with the Prada paradox. A branded crochet bag with a $2,500 price tag, despite being technically more basic than something you would find at a craft fair. This price is surely ridiculous, but I actually have dug into the luxury sphere from different angles, and I have to admit that it's a whole different terrarium, no less fascinating. And also, as an independent creator, I think there's a ton we can learn by looking at conspicuous consumption. So let me know down in the comment sections if you want me to make a full video on it. Here's the magic trick. Putting a designer name onto these knots, which no machine on earth can currently replicate, is what turned pitiful domestic chore into high-end luxury. The physical leaps and the human effort stay the same. The only thing that shifts is the social status of the person presenting it. We again have fallen for a semantic trap that lets marketing departments to design our worth, which leaves us with one question: why are we still using their vocabulary as a weapon against each other? Since these marketing scripts have been so successful at messing with our heads, the gatekeepers don't even need to police us anymore. Instead of reading the room to find out who rigged the game, we look sideways at our peers to fuel a horizontal hostility. These rules that meant to protect the price of oil paintings turns us into the unpaid enforcers of a vanity loop. This realization gives us the permission to embrace crochet as the defiant black sheep of the fiber world, celebrating the way it refuses to blend in with the flock, because until today, no state-of-the-art machine has ever mastered the hook. Wait a second, is that machine crocheting? The short answer is not at all, because crochet requires complex multi-axis movement to form a single stitch. It is vastly more difficult to automate than knitting. The crochet fabrics created by machines in textile production may look genuine at first, but they completely lack the unique structural merits of real crochet. I'm actually making a video about this soon. We often misunderstand crochet and missed out on its true capabilities. It is an incredibly understudied form of textile. We can feel its potential every time we pick up a hook, but we still lack a deep understanding of the discipline of crochet. Stay tuned. Crochet remains a bit of uncapturable magic that stitches the hand and the mind back together. When we finally let those ancient rivalries drift away, the next online fight about drape and tension start to look like a strange artifact of a very old and tired social anxiety. Sitting here with a ball of yarn, we can continue the quiet magic of coloring our own reality, letting each silent stitch settle into a grounded piece that belongs entirely to the hands that made it.